the future is not clear. It's kind of murky, kind of cloudy. What my partner and I are finding is there's a lot of brokers looking to exit the business. So that
Yep.
is definitely a trend. Some are older, they're done. Some don't want to deal with AI and all the changes that they have to get up to speed on in order to continue in business. It's hard because there's just not the volume that there was.
Hey everybody, it's Kathy Byrnes here with Real Estate Riches, and I'm excited to have my guest today, Norma Rawlings, on. And you're up in Canada, right?
I am in Canada, Kathy. I still have 3 feet of snow on my front
Oh,
yard.
70 degrees out here today in North Carolina, and I'm happy.
I don't blame you. It's actually, to be fair to Canada, it's been a very cold, snowy winter everywhere throughout the US, throughout Canada. But in the last 2 days, it's actually come above zero for us, which is about 35 your temperature. So it's
Yeah,
much, much nicer
yeah,
than it was.
yeah. Well, thank God for that, right? And it's spring is here. Let's just see it, right?
Yeah, it's funny. So I like winter. I ski, I hike, but I'm sure you probably feel the same given where you live. Come March, I'm ready for spring. I'm like
Yeah,
ready. I'm okay, let's go. Come
let's
on,
go.
spring.
That's right. Well, I'm excited to talk to you about because your business. I'd love for you to share what you do and how you've been doing this because you've been in business with real estate for 21 years, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
2 decades.
yeah, so go ahead and kind of share your specialty, and I want everybody to understand it.
Of course. So, what my partner and I do is we help real estate brokers with valuations. If they need their business valued for succession planning or tax estate planning or partnership issues or merging or stuff like that. We also help them buy other brokerages,
Mm,
which we call recruiting through acquisition. So if they want to expand their footprint by 15 agents, 30 agents, 100 agents, we
hmm.
help them purchase a new real estate brokerage to add to their existing. And we also help them exit. So if they want to retire, slow down, sell for whatever reasons, we run a sales process for them and help them sell their businesses. So it's everything around real estate brokerage, valuation, merger, acquisition.
Wow, I love that. And I'm seeing that the whole industry is changing so dramatically. That has been something that's been really doable in the past. How do you see the future going with things like that?
So it's a fascinating question, and you and I have talked about this a little bit a couple months ago. It's uncertain. The
Yeah.
the the future is not clear. It's kind of murky, kind of cloudy. We talked about how all the major players are suing each other and there's a lot of unhappiness at the highest levels. There's the big Compass Anywhere merger, which is has dramatically impacted the entire industry.
Yeah.
What my partner and I are finding, Kathy, is there's a lot of brokers looking to exit the business. So that
Yep.
is definitely a trend. You've probably seen that as well. And that is for a variety of reasons. Some are older, they're done. Some don't want to deal with AI and all the changes that they have to get up to speed on in order to continue in business. And
Hmm.
others are just really suffering from the low transaction marketplace where there's just
Boy.
not enough, 4 million, 4.1 million houses traded hands in the States,
Yeah.
down from record highs during COVID. It's hard. It's hard because there's just not the volume that there was. And so running a
Right.
brokerage, a lot of people are running it unprofitably. They don't have any cash.
Yeah.
They're pumping cash in every month. So tough environment. I'm finding it a tough environment. On the other hand, we have brokers who are growing through acquisition. So we've
Hmm.
got one fellow who's grown to 30 locations. He started at
Wow.
16 about 3 years ago. We've got another who's at 60. He started at 28 about 4 years ago. So some of them are just very bullish and aggressive and they grow. But yeah, tough for me when I look objectively, and you and I talked about this, as I say, a couple of months ago. It's a tough environment, very uncertain.
It's uncertain. The one good thing that I think that you said about a lot of agents leaving, it reminds me of 2007 and 8 when thousands left and we needed them to leave because they were part-timers anyway. And a lot of agents still, I heard a statistic, 70% of all the agents in the US didn't sell a home last year. So that's pretty staggering. And I believe it. I believe it because the numbers were just so down, and if you're not really doing this as a business, then you're going to back off, like, oh, it's just
Yeah.
so hard.
Yeah, you're right. It requires a more professional, disciplined, full-time approach to being
Yep.
an agent right now. The times during COVID when, as I mean, you and I were, I'm sure you were the same. It was incredible how buoyant the real estate market was,
Yeah.
how all the prices were going up.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted real estate. They all wanted to move out, out of the cities. It like that whole environment is gone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the current environment requires that disciplined, persistent approach to running the profession of being a real estate agent.
Yes. And like you're saying, that world's changing because of the mergers. And I've been interviewing agents like crazy that are involved in that merger because I want to hear it from the inside.
Yeah.
It's one thing to hear it from the outside. And because there was a Zillow survey done, which I got the source. I don't remember it right now, but I do have it. That said 53% of the agents were not happy about that merger. Now you can be not happy and still go. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Because a lot of people like to grumble.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
especially
As
these
a
days.
people, we like to complain sometimes, for sure.
And what was interesting to me though was how AI was telling the story, and I wanted sources of everything it was saying. It was saying that basically Compass was planning on all those franchise fees to pay back down the debt of the $2.5 billion debt. And then I'm thinking, well, how do you do a franchise if you're the franchise owner? What just happened to you? Because it turns out the way that merger happened was it was the stockholders voting, wasn't necessarily the franchise owner voting. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, so I had no say in that, and now my franchise is part of this. And then I was talking to a Coldwell Banker agent the other day, and he goes, "Well, not all Coldwell Banker franchises went. They weren't the ones that were with Anywhere did, but the ones that were something, another pod, which I didn't understand. He kind of related it to like GM has different divisions. And I said, so you're telling me there's no franchise fees at the one that just merged the Anywhere one? He goes, there's no franchise fees. I said, well, you can't just get rid of franchise fees. Where does that go? And he goes, well, how they're doing it per this agent who's Coldwell Banker, he said it will be tacked on to the buyer or the seller. And it's the fee that's going to be done in the listing or buyer agency agreement. And I thought, boy, that's tricky. Now this guy was a producer. So can a producer sell that pitch? Probably. Can the majority? No. So I'm thinking, boy, we're going to have more people inching out, and because that didn't make sense to me. I said, well, if Compass is planning on those franchise fees, then they need to pay down that debt because they just took on a huge debt. And how they really started was buying up different firms, much like you're talking about, and also paying huge amounts of money to major players to come on over with the
Yeah.
3-year handcuffs.
Yeah. It has changed, Kathy. It's fascinating because what we're seeing on the ground is Compass has pulled back from any significant capital investment. Their
Mhm.
mandate is to preserve cash because, as you spoke about, they've got $3 billion worth of debt.
Yep.
So the mandate has changed dramatically where before they would write a check, now they don't want to do any of that. It's fascinating actually, as you keyed on, the largesse is gone, right?
Right.
The generous offers, the deals you couldn't refuse, the no-brainers, or what felt like no-brainers are
Yeah.
no more. So even
Right.
within their franchise network through Anywhere, we're doing work with them, and no, the metrics just are nowhere near as generous for
Mhm.
conversion incentives, for any sort of transitions than they were before.
Wow, interesting. So
Yeah.
you're in the meat of all of that probably with a lot of panicking owners of franchises, I'm thinking. Or see, that's the tricky part because like for me, I can't talk to a franchise owner about, hey, come on over here to EXP because that's and then I'm breaking franchise law. So,
Yes. Yeah,
uh
it's tricky. It's
yeah,
very
it's
tricky.
really
And
tricky.
you are, I tease you that you are an EXP evangelist. It's been
I
so
am.
good to you that you love it. You see it as a solution for lots of people.
I
So
do.
you're right. There's all sorts of tricky laws that you have to be aware of
Right.
before you pitch somebody.
Yeah, really, really careful. And I saw a lot of those franchise owners kind of sucker punched in the whole thing as far as what they thought they had versus now what they had. I didn't realize the different variables between the Coldwell bankers, um, that there was one kind of franchise and another kind of franchise. So that was new to me. And an
Yeah,
AI.
I haven't heard that either. What's interesting is I did an article in LinkedIn about predictions for the brands, and
Mhm.
you and I chatted about this a couple of months ago as well. I can't see, even though the party line right now, as you and I know, is all brands will remain, we're not changing anything, which is smart strategy when
For
you
now.
transition a business, right? The status quo. But inevitably, how do they keep Better Homes and Gardens, and like how do they keep all Corcoran and all the various pieces? They're all going to be competing against each other in the same market. So at some point you would think you have to merge some of them together to make any sort of sense. I think Coldwell Banker will stay a separate brand because it's got such a legacy in America. And Sotheby's and Christie's they can't do anything about because they're licenses. They don't own them, so licenses from the auction houses. But
Oh, I did not
but
know that.
yeah, but everything else, Kathy, I think is fair game. I mean, why wouldn't you start to look at merging those brands over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years rather than have 10 different brands competing in one marketplace? Like San Antonio, Texas, you're going to have 10 brands competing against each other, all owned by the same ultimate shareholder.
Yeah.
It seems completely senseless.
Right. Especially as a stockholder, I'd be pitching a fit.
Yeah, well, because again, it's the management of the 10 brands. It's whenever you buy something, you look for in our business, when a broker owner buys somebody else's real estate business, they look at the synergies. They look at, okay, we only need one CFO, so we can reduce some of the accounting and bookkeeping
Mm.
costs. We only need one premises, so we can let go of premises, right? You have to assume that at that Compass Anywhere level, it's the same thing, but just rolled out across America. So they have to find synergies in order to justify the price they paid and the debt they've taken on.
Right. The
So the
debt.
article I wrote predicted that there will be some merging of those brands over the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years that
Yeah.
they can. But as I say, Christie's and Sotheby's I see staying because they don't have the ability to merge. And Coldwell Banker I expect they'll keep because it's such a storied, long-term
Yeah.
sort of presence in America. But
Hmm.
anybody else? Tough. It'll be
Yeah.
very interesting.
So tell me more about the licenses. I didn't understand that. So a
So
license.
Christie's and Sotheby's are ultimately auction houses. They've
Oh,
been competing for 300 years, I think. I think they're both from the 1700s,
oh
maybe
wow.
18, but somewhere around there. So storied, very storied auction houses, and they've licensed the name to be used in conjunction with luxury real estate.
Oh,
So they can't, they don't own them. They would never countenance a merger between the two auction houses because they've been literally rivals for centuries. So those two brands will stay separate is my prediction. And then Coldwell Banker, as you touched on earlier, is such a storied brand. I think it's the oldest brand in America. So
yeah.
it's likely sticking around because it has such a pedigree. Everything else, I think, is fair game over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Well then, and yet anywhere owned Sotheby's and Christie's, right?
Yeah, yeah. They have the license to use the brands across America.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow. It just very convoluted.
Yeah, yeah, all the different layers,
Oh
all
my
the different
gosh,
complexities. It's
right?
way above my pay grade.
Me
I
too.
try to I try to follow it, but Kathy, it's again the complexity of the deal that Refkin did is multi-layered, and the other challenge, and it's driving transactions for shops like ours, is it creates again that uncertainty we talked about, where if you are part of the Anywhere family and now you're also part of Compass, and so you all have those 10 brands as we were talking about competing in San Antonio, what does that do to you? Are you optimistic about the future, especially in the low transaction environment, or are you thinking, now might be a good time to sell because I'm not really making any money. Some brokers are providing checks every month to cover expenses. So at that point, why? Unless you have a really clear view that things are going to get better, we're seeing a lot of broker owners say, okay, let me consider a sale. And we're receiving some calls saying, what would a sale look like? What would the process look like? Who are the buyers? What can I expect as far as money, payout time, transition time?
Yeah,
It's a lot of uncertainty. And you touched on it earlier. Agents like status quo. They're
yeah,
comfortable with status quo.
really
If
cool.
everything stays the same, then the reason they chose to be at that brokerage generally remains and they don't move. But the
Right.
moment you introduce that uncertainty, they start to look at their options. It's
Yeah,
human nature. We start to say, oh, well, if it's going to change anyways, let me look at EXP. Let me look at all these
all
different
these
options
others.
that I wouldn't have done before when I was status quo, content and stable.
I think that's kind of true in most cases. People have to have something that challenge the status quo for them to
They
look.
need a catalyst. They need a
Yeah.
catalyst
Yep.
for change. Because
Yeah.
as humans, unless we are self-propelling, which frankly a lot of real estate agents are because they have to be, but unless you are extremely self-propelling, if you're content and things are working, why would you change it?
Yeah.
Whereas the moment uncertainty is brought to bear, the moment there's a change that's imposed upon you, you look
Yeah.
at your options.
Boy, that's the truth. And I was thinking, so if I was saying I might want to buy one of those firms, I'm going to try and get it at a deep discount, I'm thinking.
It it depends. So if you're talking to the sort of brokerage that has been losing money for the last 3 years in the low environment market, then you're definitely looking at a no cash down kind of transaction. You're
Mm.
looking at Kathy would take it over, so you become the broker of record, you transition all the agents, and you'd pay out the seller over a period of three
Ah,
years, for example, out of the additional income that it provides to you because you've taken on all those agents. So it's
gotcha.
very much a no money down, payout over 3 years kind of deal. We've
Hmm.
done a number of those. For a profitable brokerage, Kathy, you're not getting it cheaply, but you are getting it on more attractive terms than you would have
Okay.
in 21 and 22. So in 22, we did a few transactions that were almost entirely cash, right? So it was like if it's $1 million valuation, they got $1 million cash. That is not happening in this environment at all. In
Mm.
this environment, if it was $1 million valuation, they might get 300,000 up front, 250, sometimes 100, sometimes 400. They get a down payment, but they always have to hold paper for a period of 2 years minimum, I would say, and sometimes as long as 4, 5, 6, 7 years, just depending on how the
Wow.
deal is structured. So
Sure.
much different deal structure.
So now let's say I had that firm, I agreed that you bought it or you represented somebody who bought it. And now I obviously have to have a not compete, right? Non-compete in
Say
the
that
event.
again.
Do I have to, as the one who just got bought out, do I have to have a non-compete?
Yes. So typically what happens is if you sell your business, the last thing, let's say you're the buyer, Kathy, the
Mhm.
last thing you want to have happen is that that broker owner says, 6 months in, I'm not really fond of how Kathy's running the place. I'm just going to open up across the street and attract all my agents back because that's a major risk for you.
Sure.
So You're absolutely right. The seller has to generally enter into a non-compete for at least the period of time of the payout, along with a non-solicit. So they
Mm.
literally have to say, a lot of them will become salespeople for you. So they'll go from being the broker owner to being a salesperson in your company,
Ah,
subject to the non-compete and non-solicitation. That's often a win-win situation for the buyer and the seller.
well, that makes sense. I would like that if that were me. And
Yeah.
I didn't want any of the nightmare headaches anymore. You can have all the people, just let me just be in here.
Absolutely. And a lot of people, so you think about your specific journey has been fascinating. We talked about that a couple months ago, but you think about how you start out as an agent and you sort of find your way, and then you become a broker, and then you realize how much burden and pressure that is, but you grow it and you persist and you grow your business. And then at some point, you kind of want to turn around and do that same transition out the other side. So okay, I no longer want the burdens. I no longer want the hassles. I want to transition the business, but continue to sell because that's how I started. And so that's how a lot of people move into retirement. It's a nice journey because you come up through it and then you kind of,
Yeah.
have it the same way.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
And
Well,
you and I both know real estate agents can't just do nothing. Like your personality is such that you're constantly needing some sort of business stimulus to keep you engaged. And
this
so
is,
it's a really nice we've had a number of retired brokers go back to selling. And
mm,
it's just a really interesting transition because they've got such a great network.
yeah,
They've got generally a really good reputation within the community. And a lot of them will spend 6 months of the year down south and 6 months of the year selling to their network. And
yeah,
what a great arrangement for the buyer because the
yes,
the figurehead is stuck around in a very positive, supportive environment. The agents are happy. And for the seller, it's brilliant because he or she's still making some money and needs that stimulation, and that provides it. So
yeah.
we've had a lot of really nice transitions that way.
Well, I love that. That's a happy ending.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think about Compass with Redfin? Yeah.
I don't know how they propose to have it all work. What disturbs me generally is just all the litigation that's going on.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's fighting against everybody else. And the challenge with that, I always say the worst settlement is better than the best judgment. Like
Yep.
even if you win in court, you've lost in the court of public opinion because people don't want you suing each other. They want you to figure out how to best serve them, the consumer.
Right.
And that's ultimately your job, right? That's ultimately your agent's job is how do I take care of my customer? And the litigation to me is just a lose-lose at a very high level.
Very good.
So I don't know how the Compass Redfin deal will work out. This whole private listing network versus MLS, all the controversy around that, it always comes down to me of what's in the best interest of the customer.
Yes.
And if it's in the best interest of the customer, that it's widely viewed by everybody who possibly can look at it when you're going to sell a house, then that's how it probably should be, right?
Yes. I
Like
totally
it's
agree.
yeah, it like you simplify it down to what does the customer need? What's in the best interest of the customer? And
Right.
that simplifies the business, but it really is a simple business.
It
You've
is.
succeeded, I think you told me this before, by just taking care of your clients. You take care of your customers, you take care of your agents. That's how you succeed.
Yes.
So shouldn't it apply across the board to at all levels?
Yeah, that's the bottom line. As a realtor, our whole agenda is our clients, and we want
Yeah,
happy clients because we want raving fans and we want repeat business. That's the whole agenda.
absolutely. You
Yeah.
want so say, with our business, it's similar. We don't want one party to a transaction delighted and one party resentful and angry. That's
Hmm.
that's a disaster. Like
Yeah.
that's not a successful transaction.
Mhm.
What you want is a mutually beneficial deal that takes care of both parties where yeah, there's a bit of compromise, but each of them feels like they got out of it a good result. And
Yeah.
that's the ideal we strive for. That's the ideal you strive for. You
Yes.
want your customer to feel like you took really good care of him or her so that he's going to refer to you, his mom and his best friend and his boss. That's ideal. You think
Yeah.
about in your case, think about one client and how many future clients that person could represent for you.
Oh, absolutely. And it has.
Right.
They won't say, I know Kathy. They'll say, you've got to use Kathy, which is my agenda, right?
Which is wonderful.
Yeah,
Right. That's exactly. And you think about if you distill your objective in a transaction down to one thing, it's really what it is. It's like after you finish dealing with me, I want you to feel if you have anything to do with real estate, call Kathy. You must call Kathy. That like
must.
that really distills down what you want to have happen throughout the whole transaction.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that that's your mindset for when you're closing those deals too, because everybody, for me, at the closing table, I want everyone happy and that they're there, that it's all everyone feels that they got the right end result for them.
Yeah, fair value. Everybody
Yes,
feels fairly dealt with. And
yes.
and it's funny, it's not a used car situation. It's not like you're going to Costco and buying something. You it's a long-term relationship. It's you're selling somebody a house that hopefully they're going to be in for a decade at least. We're selling a business from one broker to another that they're going to have a relationship, those two brokers, for at least a year, maybe 3 years, maybe a decade. Like the best situations are those where the two parties get out of it what they need and what they want and work together going forward.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
yours
a
is even
great
stronger.
feeling.
Yeah.
I received a note from one of my clients in Wyoming, and she just said, thank you so much for connecting us with the buyers you did. It's like a great collaboration. And
Mm.
I'm sure you've had so many customers call you and say, Kathy, thank you so much. I love the house. I love, I'm so glad you didn't let me buy these six other houses that I thought I wanted. This is it for me. I'm happy. I never want to move. Like that makes you feel good. That's the sort of thing that drives us as people, is the sense that we're making a difference in a positive way,
Yeah.
and somebody's really happy as a result.
So tell me what you would say to somebody out there that's sitting on the fence. They're feeling uneasy because you're the person in my mind to call. And I mean, you have such a great record of a history of doing this too. So you're not just some Joe Schmo down the street. You really have credentials behind you and success stories. So what would you say to a firm that might be listening right now, like that would help them say, I should probably just call her to find something out?
Thank you very much I appreciate your comments. I think what I would say is if you wouldn't counsel your customer to FSBO their house, why are you thinking of FSBOing your brokerage?
Mm,
Right? That's that whole, I mean, you and I both know clients selling their house by themselves is a recipe for disaster, lower prices, bad process, failed deals. It's just a specialty. It's a specialized expertise that a real estate agent brings to the table that is valuable. And
mhm.
same concept with the sale of your business. You've spent so much time building this business, and even if you're struggling with it right now, it ultimately is going to have some value to somebody. And so if you run a professional process, figure out what it's worth, and then what we love to do is we'll help you evaluate, and then we'll help you identify who's the best buyer for it. And then one of the most important things that we do, Kathy, is we approach the prospective buyer anonymously. So they have
Mm,
no idea that you're the one thinking of selling, right? We reach
mm,
out and we say, listen, we've got a brokerage in this section of North Carolina, and it's between 50 and 70 agents, and the gross commission income is between 50 and 100 million. Are you interested? Is it something you would look at? You're going to have to put 150,000 down, and the other 300 you're going to have to pay over the next 2 or 3 years. Is that something that would interest you? And if the prospective buyer says no, they never know who the ultimate seller is. So
mm,
it
mm, mm.
preserves your confidentiality, because the last thing you want is word on the street. Oh, Kathy's thinking of selling her brokerage.
Oh
Because,
gosh.
like, talk about disaster. All of a sudden, all of your competitors are calling all of your agents
Oh,
looking to recruit them.
yes.
So
Yes.
it's the confidentiality piece, Kathy, and the don't FSBO. Those are probably the two pieces of advice that I would give someone thinking about selling a brokerage. Is it's you'll never regret bringing in us, or there's a number, there's a handful of firms who do exactly what we do. You'll never regret it because we'll always get you more in a way that is going to be far more professional and far less fraught with risk.
Yeah.
Because again, what you're selling are your agents. You're selling the transition of those agents. If word gets out ahead of time that you're thinking of selling, the agents all of a sudden, as we talked about earlier, they hate change. They start looking at their options, they leave. Then the value of your brokerage has just diminished
Hmm.
because you didn't maintain that confidentiality. So
Yeah.
those are two things that I would say we provide. I mean, I thoroughly enjoy what I do because I deal with business owners like you every day, right?
Hmm.
And entrepreneurs are interesting people. They view the world differently than the rest of the people. They take on risk. They, as we talked about earlier, they have a bit of gallows humor going on because they have to, because you inevitably have stuff not go the way you want it to.
Right.
And there's just this persistence, this joie de vivre is the wrong thing, but this propulsion forward where you're going to continue to grow your business, you're going to continue to run your business, and people like that are very enjoyable clients.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that was excellent. And I think really important for everybody to hear because I know there's people out there that are thinking this right now. There's just got to be.
Yeah,
It
it's a tough environment. It's especially if you look at the low transactions, and you and I've talked about this before as well. Transaction fees have become such a critical part of our overall business. If
yeah,
your transactions are down by 20%, your gross revenue is down by 20%. So
yeah,
it's just tough. It's tough to make ends meet. We see a lot of people trying to margin adjust their expenses, primarily salary and occupancy, which are the two biggest expenses typically of a brokerage, because they just can't, they don't have the top line. So
right.
if you don't have the top line, you can't afford to pay $300,000 a year for your premises. You might have to try to figure out how to make it 100,000, which is dramatic, right? It's a dramatic reduction, but you've had that dramatic reduction in revenue. So you have to find out where you save, because if at the end of the day you don't have every month that you generate cash is a good month and time is your friend. Every month you don't generate cash and you have to fund it, time is your enemy.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Been there, don't want to be there anymore.
100%. And that's the key, as I say, of that entrepreneurial spirit where
Yeah.
you learn through disaster, right? You look at your books after 6 months and go, I just put $100,000 into my business. What am I doing? And
Right.
then you make changes by necessity. Otherwise, you're not going to survive.
That's it. That's it. Well, boy, this was wonderful. I'm so glad we got together on here, and I appreciate all this insight.
It is a complete pleasure. And as I say, I like that. You're the EXP evangelist. I think that's a very good description for you because it's been so good to you.
Yes, it's been good to me. And it's not meant for everybody, that's for sure, because it is an entrepreneur that needs to come to, I think,
Yeah.
EXP, for sure. Well, thank you so
Amazing.
much.
Thank you for having me, Kathy, and I hope that we will chat again soon.
I'm sure we will. Well, that's it, everybody. That's a wrap for this week. And we're going to have all Norma's information below so you can reach out to her. And I encourage you to do if that's something that's going on in your world. And if you're interested in EXP, you can always reach out to me. Let's book a strategy call and see how it would look in your eyes. And if you're thinking, man, I'd like to have a conversation with Kathy Byrnes. Maybe I'd like to be part of this EXP company and see what it's all about. That sounds good to me. Let's book a strategy call and let's have a talk. No pressure, but man, it's worth a conversation. The link's in the description.